A warm welcome to everyone. We are in part 13 of the chapter Respiration and Circulation of Maharashtra State Board. In my last lecture, we had started with composition of blood, and in composition of blood, we had studied plasma and formed elements. In formed elements, we had started with erythrocyte in detail. We had studied erythrocytes in detail. In today's part 13, we are going to study about WBCs, that is leukocytes, and also thrombocytes, which are a type of formed elements. So let us start with WBC or leukocytes in detail. Okay, so respiration and circulation, part 13. Now, white blood corpuscles, they are also called as leukocytes. Now, leukocytes, they are colorless, nucleated, and amoeboid cells larger than RBCs. Last time we had studied about erythrocytes or RBCs, and we had seen that RBCs, they are circular in shape and they are enucleated. Whereas if we see white blood corpuscles, they are colorless, nucleated, nucleus is present, and they are amoeboid cells. That means amoeba does not have any shape, right? So these cells, they are also shapeless, you can say, or amoeboid cells. Now, due to their amoeboid movement, they can move out of capillary walls, and this process is called as diapdesis. Now, amoeboid movement, okay, they show amoeboid movement, and because of this amoeboid movement, what happens that they can come out easily of the capillary walls. We know in our body blood vessels are present, that is arteries and veins. So these WBCs through the arteries and veins, when they can easily come out or squeeze out of the capillary wall. So this process where the WBCs easily come out of the intact capillary walls and directly come in contact with the tissues, this process is called as diapdesis. Now, a normal adult, they have an average of about 5,000 to 11,000 WBCs per cubic millimeter of blood. Now, when there is decrease in number of WBCs, this condition is called as leukopenia. Now, we had studied just now, we had seen that WBCs, it ranges about 5,000. But when the number is less than 4,000, this condition is called as leukopenia, and this is commonly found in HIV patients, AIDS, and also TB patients. And also it is seen those who are exposed to radiations and shocks. Now, temporary increase in the number of WBCs is called as leukocytosis. Now, if suppose you are suffering from infections like any kind of viral infections or bacterial infections, at that time what happens, the number of WBCs increases. So that we know that WBCs, they act as a part of immune system. Okay, they act as a line of defense. So there is temporary increase in the number of WBCs during infections, and this is called as leukocytosis. Now, it also occurs during pregnancy and in newborn babies. During pregnancy and newborn babies also, they have large number of WBCs. Uncontrolled increase in number of WBCs is a type of blood cancer called as leukemia. Now, when WBC keeps on increasing, the number keep on increasing, and what happens, there is uncontrolled increase in the number of WBCs. Your body couldn't control, your body is not able to control the increased number of WBCs. So we know cancerous cells, okay, they do not remain at one what you can say, at one place. Okay, they go to different place in a body and they keep on dividing. So this leads to a cancer. So when there is uncontrolled increase in number of WBCs, it leads to blood cancer, which is also called as leukemia. WBCs are concerned with defense mechanism, that is protection. So the main function of WBCs is protection. Now when we say leukocytes or WBCs, they are divided into agranulocytes and granulocytes. Now agranulocytes basically consist of lymphocyte and monocyte, whereas the granulocytes, they are basically of three types, that is basophil, neutrophil and eosinophil. As we know that WBCs, they are colorless, irregular nucleated cells. WBCs are classified into two main types. In the diagram just we had seen, that is granulocytes and agranulocytes. What are granulocytes? We are going to study the first part or the first type, which is called as granulocytes. They are the WBCs with granular cytoplasm. Now, if we see granulocytes, as we know that they have a nucleus, and around the nucleus there is cytoplasm. So, in the cytoplasm, when granules are present, they are called as granulocytes. Now, here in granulocytes, the nucleus is lobulated. Lobulated means what? Nucleus have many lobes, and these lobes, they are of different shapes. Now granulocytes, they are formed from myeloid stem cells, and once formed do not divide. In part 12, we had studied about hemocytoblast. Hemocytoblast means what? A stem cell, the major main cell. So myeloid stem cell, it is also one of the stem cells, and from this main stem cells, many different type of blood cells are formed. So granulocytes, they are formed from a stem cells. The name of the stem cell is myeloid. Okay, and once formed, these cells, they do not divide. Now granulocytes, they form about 72% of total WBCs. Now granulocytes, what are they? Granulocytes, they are actually secretory vesicles. Okay, vesicles means what? Rounded bodies. Okay, and these rounded bodies, what does it contains? It contains various secretions and it contains different enzymes. Now, depending upon the staining property of granules, the granulocytes are classified into three main types. First type is neutrophils, second type is basophils, and third type is acidophils. Let us go to the first type, that is neutrophils. Now, why they are called as neutrophils? Why this type of WBC are called as neutrophils? Because these type of cells, they get easily stained by neutral stains. They get easily stained by neutral stain or neutral dyes. That is why these type of WBCs, they are called as neutrophils. Now, when we see the diagram of neutrophil, here you can see granules are very fine. Fine means what? Very thin. Okay, very small. Okay, so granules are very fine, but they are very much large in number and they are evenly distributed. See, this is the nucleus and this is the cytoplasm. So in the cytoplasm, you can see granules, they are very much smaller in size. Okay, but they are evenly distributed all over the cytoplasm. Now 70% of WBCs are neutrophils. When we see the shape of the neutrophils, they are spherical in shape. And how is the nucleus? Nucleus is about 2 to 7 lobe. Here you can see it is 3 lobe. So the number of lobes, it starts from 2 to 7. Now these neutrophils, they are responsible for destroying pathogens by the process of phagocytosis. How do they destroy the pathogens? Pathogens means what? Any foreign body which enters our body, that can be called as pathogen. So how this pathogen is destroyed? By process of phagocytosis. Phagocytosis means what? These cells engulf the foreign bodies. Okay, so that is process is called as phagocytosis. Now, pus is a mixture of dead neutrophil, damaged tissue, and dead microbes. You must have experienced many times pus, okay, through the pimples and all you must have seen. So, what actually that pus is? It is a mixture of dead cell. Even if you have any kind of wound, if you fall down and if you see wound, okay, so you can see accumulation of pus. So, what actually that pus is? It is a mixture of dead neutrophils, damaged tissue, and dead microbes. Second type of WBC, it is called as basophil. Now, what are basophils? They are called as basophils because they get easily stained by basic stains like methylene blue. These are the cells which easily get stained by basic dyes. Now, how are the cells? The cell is round here and you can see that very much few granules are present in the cytoplasm. This part is cytoplasm and in the cytoplasm you can see few granules are present. And how are the granules? But here the granules are very much large in size. In neutrophil, many granules were present, but they were smaller in size. Here the granule size is very much large. Now, basophils, they are non-phagocytic. Non-phagocytic means what? They cannot engulf the foreign bodies, okay, or dead cells, you can say. So, they are non-phagocytic. They are small spherical cells and they form about 0.5 to 1% of total WBCs. How is the nucleus? Nucleus is twisted. You can see this is the nucleus in the purple color. And how is the nucleus? It is twisted. They are present in infected and allergic conditions only. When are the basophils, what you can say, when are the basophils present? These basophils, they are present during infected and allergic conditions. Infected conditions, as I said, if you suffer from any kind of infections, bacterial infections it may be, or viral infections, and also allergic conditions. Allergy, if you are suffering from cold and cough due to some allergy, okay, or allergic conditions, asthma also. So during this allergic conditions they are present. Now, what is the function of basophil? Basophil, they secrete heparin, histamine, and serotonin. Now, what is the function of heparin? Heparin, it acts as a anticoagulant. It prevents harmful clots from forming in the blood vessels. Anticoagulant means what? It does not allow clotting of blood. That is, it does not allow the clumps of blood together. So it prevents clots, so that in the blood vessels, if clots are accumulated, what will happen? There will be no flow of blood in the blood vessels. So who prevents this clots? The heparin. Second is histamine. Now, what exactly is histamine? Histamine, it is a vasodilator. What is the meaning of vasodilator? Vaso means vessels, your blood vessels, and dilator means to increase the diameter. So, what happens? The diameter of the blood vessels are increased, okay, and so there is enough flow of blood and it promotes blood flow to the tissues. If suppose if some insects bites, okay, you can suffer inflammation and redness. So during that time histamine acts. At that time, at that area, what happens? The blood vessels, they suffer from vasodilator. That means the diameter of the blood vessels increases and there is enough of blood flow to the tissue. Next is serotonin. Now, what is the function of serotonin? It is a key hormone that stabilizes our mood, feeling of well-being and happiness. Okay, this stabilizes our mood. Many times you are happy, you are sad, you get a feeling of well-being and happiness. Okay, so all this mood swings, your happiness, okay, pleasure, all this Emotions, they are controlled by a hormone called as serotonin. And who secretes that hormone serotonin? The basophil. So these were the three: heparin, histamine, and serotonin. Now next we are going to study is eosinophil, which is the third type of WBC. Now eosinophil, they are also called as acidophils. Acidophils, they contain lysosomal granules. Lysosomal granules means what? We had studied that cell organelles, okay, cell organelles basically consist of lysosomes. सेल में एक ऑर्गेनल रहता है जिसका नाम है लाइसोसोम. दिस लाइसोसोम दे आर ऑल्सो कॉल्ड एज सुसाइड बैग्स. Okay, so acidophils contains lysosome granules and they are stained to color with acidic stains like eosine. Eosine is a kind of stain, and this eosine, what it does, they are easily stained. The acidophil gets easily stained by eosine, and that is why it is called as acidophils. Eosinophils, they are about 1 to 3% of total WBCs. How is the nucleus? Nucleus is bilobed. You can see here, nucleus is bilobed, having 2 lobes. They destroy antigen antibody complex by phagocytosis. Now, antigen antibody complex, what do you mean by that? Now, if suppose any pathogen enters our body, pathogen, it may be either virus, it may be either bacteria, or it may be either fungi. Okay, so in order to prevent the infection, what your body does? Your body produces certain proteinaceous molecules which are called as antibody. Now this antibody, they have certain binding sites. You had studied in the chapter human health and diseases, you have the structure of antibody in detail. So in that structure, you can see antibody structure is Y-shaped, and on the Y-shape, they have at the ends, they have antigen binding site. So to destroy any kind of pathogen, what happens? These antibodies, which helps for protection, which the function is protection, it binds with antigen. So antigen antibody complex is formed, and this antigen antibody complex, they are destroyed by phagocytosis. They kill the antigen. Antibodies, they kill the antigen. But how do they destroy the antigen? By forming antigen antibody complex, and this antigen antibody complex is then destroyed by phagocytosis. Now eosinophils, the number increases in allergic conditions, and they also show antihistamine property. Antihistamine property means what? Just now we had studied about histamine. Histamine means what? They act as vasodilator. Now antihistamine means what? Vasoconstrictor. Dilator means what? Here the blood vessels, the diameter of the blood vessels was increased. So antihistamine means what? The diameter of the blood vessel constricts. Constricts means what? It becomes less. The diameter becomes less. Okay, so that is called as antihistamine property. So this occurs during allergic conditions. Now eosinophils, the function is what? They are responsible for detoxification as they produce antitoxins. Antitoxins means what? They are the molecules, okay, and these molecules, they act against toxins which enter your body. So they are responsible for detoxification. Detoxification means what? Removing of poisonous substances or toxic substances from the body. So these were the type of granulocytes. The next type of WBCs is agranulocytes. Now agranulocytes, they are 28% of WBC cells. Cytoplasm of this leukocytes is without granules. In granulocytes, what granules were present in the cytoplasm? In agranulocytes, the cytoplasm is without granules. And when the cytoplasm is without granules, such type of WBC cells, they are called as agranulocytes. From where agranulocytes are formed? They are formed from the lymphoid stem cells, and they can divide by mitosis. If we had seen granulocytes, they were formed from the myeloid stem cells and they couldn't divide. But these cells, they have the capacity to divide by mitosis. Now, how is the nucleus of agranulocytes? They are large in size and they are not lobulated. That means nucleus cannot be divided into many lobes. So that is called as non-lobulated. Agranulocytes, they are of two types, lymphocytes and monocytes. Let us go to the first type, that is lymphocytes. Now lymphocytes, they are smallest of all WBC cells. Okay, they are smaller in size, but they have a large spherical nucleus. In the diagram you can see the size of the lymphocyte is very much small. They are the smallest of all the WBCs. But when you see the nucleus, it covers the entire cell. So the nucleus is spherical and it is very much large. It constitutes about 25 to 30% of WBCs. Depending upon the function, lymphocytes are present as B lymphocyte and T lymphocyte. So let us go to the B lymphocyte. Where are B lymphocytes found? B lymphocytes are found in bone marrow. They mature in bone marrow and are responsible for antibody production. As we know, antibodies are produced, they act as a line of defense. Okay, antibodies, they help or they fight against different infections. So who produces this antibody? The B lymphocyte. The B lymphocyte, it stimulates the production of antibody production. Antibody production, it is also called as humoral immunity. T lymphocyte. As B lymphocytes, they are found in bone marrow. It is called as B lymphocyte. And T lymphocyte, it matures in thymus. Thymus is located near the heart. Okay. Now, this T lymphocyte, it matures in thymus and they are responsible for cell-mediated immunity. Now, what is cell-mediated immunity? That means antibodies are not produced. B lymphocyte, what it does? It protects your body by production of antibodies. These antibodies come forward and fight against the infections. But cell-mediated immunity means what? There is no production of antibodies. In fact, T lymphocyte, what it does? It stimulates the cells like macrophages. Macrophages is one type of cells which which directly attack or which directly engulf the foreign bodies. That means it directly attacks attacks what you can say bacteria, viruses, and kills the cells which causes infections. So here you can see the cell is activated or cell is stimulated to fight against the infection. So such type is called as cell mediated immunity. Now T lymphocytes, there are four types, that is helper T cells, killer T cells, memory T cells, and suppressor T cells. These are the main four types of T lymphocytes. These helper T cells, killer T cells, memory T cells, and suppressor T cells, we will study in chapter Human Health and Diseases in detail. Next type of agranulocyte is monocytes. Now monocytes, they are the largest of all the WBCs. Lymphocytes they were the smallest of all the WBCs. On the contrary, Monocytes, they are the largest of all the WBC. In the diagram you can see they are the largest. The nucleus is very much large and the nucleus is kidney shaped. It forms about 3 to 5% of WBCs. Monocytes are actively motile and give rise to macrophages. Actively motile means what? They can move from one place to another and they give rise to macrophages. What are macrophages? Macrophages are the large size cells, and these cells, they have the capacity of phagocytosis. That means phagocytosis means what? Engulf the dead cells or destroy the infection cells. So through the phagocytosis, they are mainly phagocytic and destroy the bacteria and dead or damaged tissue by phagocytosis. That means they eat the dead cells or they engulf the dead and destroyed cells. So these were the type of WBCs. WBCs, let us revise again. WBCs consist of granulocytes and agranulocytes. In granulocytes, we had studied neutrophil, basophil, and acidophil. And agranulocyte consists of lymphocytes and monocytes. Now these were about WBCs. Now the last part of the formed cells. We had studied formed cells. They are of three types, that is erythrocytes or RBCs, WBCs or leukocytes, and the third type is thrombocytes. Thrombocytes, they are the third type of formed cells. They are also called as platelets. What are thrombocytes? They are cellular fragments formed from the large cells called megakaryocytes. Megakaryocytes, they are the type of cells which are large. And these megakaryocytes, they separate or they divide into fragments. And these fragments, okay, these cellular fragments, they are called as thrombocytes. Where are they produced? They are produced in the bone marrow. How are they? They are small oval shaped cells and they are without nucleus. Now in human blood, about 2.5 to 4.5 lakh of cubic millimeter of blood thrombocytes are present. The number is 2.5 to 4.5 lakhs, they are present in cubic millimeter of blood. Now thrombocytes, they decrease their normal. If thrombocytes they decrease their normal, that is, if they decrease less than 2 lakhs, then this condition is called as thrombocytopenia. And when thrombocytopenia occurs, what happens? The person suffers from internal bleeding, which is called as hemorrhage. That means the blood does not clots. Okay, continuous bleeding. The person can suffer from continuous bleeding, basically in brain, and this condition is called as internal bleeding. Platelets secretes platelets factor which are essential in blood clotting. As we had studied previously, that blood clotting means what? In heparin we had studied that it acts as anticoagulant. That means it does not allow clotting of blood. But this platelets, they help in blood clotting. They allow blood clotting. Like if you fall down, after some time you can see that blood does not comes out. Yes, at the site of the wound, the blood does not comes out. Why it does not comes out? Because the blood clots there. Clumps of the blood are formed, and this clotting of blood is responsible. Why? Because platelets are responsible. Platelets, what it does, it secretes platelets factor, and this allows blood clotting. They also seal the ruptured blood vessels by formation of platelet plug thrombus. Now, if your blood vessels are ruptured, so at that time or at that site, what happens? Platelet plugs, all the platelets gets what you can say accumulated over there. A platelet plug is formed or thrombus is formed, and this does not allow the blood to come out from the blood vessels. They secrete serotonin, a local vasoconstrictor. Serotonin, we had studied that just now, that it acts as it elevates your mood. Okay, it creates happiness, okay, sadness. But along with that also, serotonin has one more function, that it acts as a local vasoconstrictor. Vasoconstrictor means what? The diameter of the blood vessels. Vaso means blood vessels, and constrictor means what? The diameter of the blood vessel constricts. Constricts means what? It becomes small, so that when the blood vessels at that site, that is local site, the blood vessels, the diameter of the blood vessels, what you can say, it becomes small, so that no flow of blood is allowed at that local site. And so it is said they secrete serotonin, a local vasoconstrictor. So it was this much for today's lecture. That's it. I hope you understood. So I stop the lecture over here itself. Thank you.